Let's review the wiring of the SQM4 actuator. Today, we're going to focus on the 4 to 20 milliamp version, which is very common. We're going to look at the 5 board, which is that version. The 5 is indicated as the second number past the period in the part number. What we're going to look at is we're going to use, on the inside cover, there's a wiring diagram that's going to be really helpful for you in the field to see what's going on. Let's dive in. The X1 and X2 terminals on the diagram are these green terminals here. X1 is the low voltage terminals, which is the 4 to 20. X2 terminals is the line voltage. Worth mentioning is the numbers on the diagram are spatially out of order. The numbers are out of order to make the diagram easy to read. It's very important to go by the pin number rather than the spacing on the diagram. For example, pin 8 on the diagram is the neutral, which is shown in the middle, but on the actuator is the 8th pin. This wiring here is the bare minimum 4-wire install. If there's power on X2 pin 9, the actuator will modulate according to the 4 to 20 milliamp. A common wiring practice is breaking the 4 to 20 milliamp loop with a normally open relay contact to keep the actuator at low fire for ignition. Once the burner is in operation, you can use the main shutoff valve output to energize a relay, allowing the actuator to modulate. Best practice is to use a time delay relay of around 10 seconds to allow the burner to light safely before allowing the actuator to modulate. If the burner shuts down, the main shutoff valves are de-energizing, opening the 4 to 20 milliamp loop, and the actuator will drive closed. This actuator has a Form C auxiliary switch with a common normally open, normally closed, shown on terminal X2, pins 3, 4, and 5. 5 is normally closed, 4 is common, and 3 is normally open. We can use this auxiliary switch to prove high fire for purge or low fire for ignition. The pins for the aux switch are labeled on the actuator itself. You may need to drive the actuator high for purge. The SQM4 uses voltage to drive the actuator open. You want to use a relay to power either open or modulate. Powering both can damage the motor. If the actuator you're replacing has an F terminal that's jumpered to drive high, we can use that same relay to drive the SQM4 to high, shown here. The F terminal jumper is low voltage. The SQM4 is using line voltage to force high and modulate. You may need to run an extra line wire to use this feature. You may have an application where you need to prove high for purge and low for ignition. One way to accomplish this is to use the aux switch to prove low for ignition and use a limit switch to prove high for purge. Once high fire is reached, the red cam 1 will change state from powering the motor to powering an output signal indicating high fire is reached. This output signal can be used to prove high fire. Here is the SQM4 fully loaded. When ready to purge, we energize the drive high terminal and break the modulate signal. Motor drives high and proves high fire reached with a limit switch. Once purge is complete, we energize the modulate terminal. With the 4 to 20 loop broken, actuator drives to low. The normally closed contact of the aux switch closes to prove that we're at low fire. Burner then lights, which completes the 4 to 20 milliamp loop after 10 seconds or so, and the actuator will modulate according to the 4 to 20 signal. We are up and running.